Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Southside Stories, where I have the pleasure of interviewing London-based entrepreneurs, founders, leaders. And just a reminder, please hit the subscribe button on your favourite podcast platform to stay across all of the latest episodes. But I'm really delighted to welcome Dan today from Black+Blum. Hello, Dan.
Hi, nice to see you.
This is going to be great because this episode is all about design, great design, design influence, the business of design, and some other topics as well. So, Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself, perhaps where you're based, and just a top line to start off with on your company.
I'm 50 years old. We are based in South London. We used to be based in the Oxo Tower. We're now between sort of Southwark and Borough. And we've been going, it's going to be our 27th year this year, so we were founded in 1998, so doing this an awful long time.
Fantastic. What a great length of time to be in business, and it's not easy being in business for that long, but I think we're going to uncover why that is during the course of our conversation. Tell us why did you want to become a designer?
God, that's a good question. My father had a business that used to make all sorts of products, so shoes and bags, and he'd bring products home to the kitchen table, and we'd always kind of, dissect them, look at them, understand why he was excited about them. I've got three older brothers. We've all got our own businesses, so he's obviously set us on this path, and it's lucky, kind of when your dad, your parent does that, and he said, "Don't be afraid to fail," and it's a lot easier starting a business when you're younger and you don't have kids and you don't have a mortgage and you're just going for it. You're living it every day, and so I've always loved products. My parents used to say that I burnt a hole in their pocket, I think was what we used to say, and it's not that I'm materialistic, but I'm always interested in products. So kind of whether it's antiques, old, new, I've always loved products, and I didn't really realise that design was a career path. And luckily a friend of my mum's was a designer, and she, just before I was going to go to Exeter University to do business studies, and I think it was literally the day before I was meant to go, I met this person, and she was like quizzing me, and suddenly I actually said, no, I'm going to go and do design. And at that point, 20, 30 years ago, product design wasn't really a career path. And so luckily enough, she kind of educated me and said, actually, you should be doing design. And went and studied design, and that's where it started. Yeah.
Maybe you've already answered this with that last answer, but did you always want to do product design or something, a three-dimensional product output rather than graphic design, for example?
No. So I did an art foundation before I went to university to do product design, and I'm a frustrated artist. I'm definitely not a fashion designer, but I could have equally been a jewellery designer. I love watches. I love cars. I think a lot of designers could go in one way or the other, and it's just luck of the draw where you end up. I didn't set out to be a water bottle lunchbox designer. I've just designed my first house with my wife, and I'm not an architect, but I think, just being a designer, you're interested in all sorts of areas, and this is where we are now. And there's some good reasons behind it, but I can share that with you later.
Yeah. Before we get into Black+Blum, tell us a little bit about some of your, what was the early design, after maybe graduating? What were some of your earliest designs that perhaps really stick in the memory for you?
That's a good question. I did holiday jobs for my dad, and I remember doing a trainer design when I was about 15 that I thought was awesome. And actually, at the time, it was rubbish, but it definitely wasn't cool at the time. But now it would be in fashion. It was kind of, more with suede and multiple colours, and at the time that wasn't the case, but it was, it was early sort of that. So that definitely stood out. I've done little sort of tinkering bits in silver that I've kind of made myself that I really, really like, and I've still got those pieces. As a designer, I think you're always excited by the most recent design. So looking back, there's definitely designs we've had in our career path. So do you mean before Black+Blum or before?
I guess it could be before, or any Black and Bloom designs that were perhaps earlier, because we're going to come on to the current range in a minute, but any that were sort of instrumental or influential or kind of led you to where you are now.
I'll let you drop the product image into this, but we did a product called James the Doorman, and we'd just moved into the Oxo Tower, and they had big, heavy glass doors. And so we cut out of wood this little man holding the door open, and we thought, well, it's great. You know, we didn't name it or anything, but people kept commenting on it as they walked in, going, "That's quite cool." And it shows how old we are. But fire regulations had just come in, so everyone was having to have fire doors fitted with springs, which are so annoying. So you use these grey rubber wedges, and we thought, let's add some character. And it was a very exciting time for design, you know, with Philip Stark and Alessi and all these this character and playfulness going into design. And so we thought, well, why don't we put that into production? And we did. It's definitely been a sort of a leapfrog moment for us. We did a trade show. We had the product there on the stand, and it had a really good reaction. But at the end of the show, and I'm not very good at trade shows, you have to be charming to people, you have to be always engaged. And it was the end of the show, I was quite tired, I was up the ladder taking our sign down, and this American lady came up and she said, "Oh, I really like your doorstops, I think I could order some." And I was like, "Great, the show's over, but I'll take your card." And I put the card in my back pocket, and a bit like a lucky £5 note, I found it later. And it was just all pre-internet, really. We weren't selling anything in America, but I looked at the card and it was Target or Target, and I think second or third largest retailer in the US, and they ordered by the container load, and that gave us, sort of the capital money to then invest in bigger products, more complex products with bigger tooling, and so that was a really, really big moment. And it's luck of the draw.
Fantastic, yeah, and you've got some great distribution partners now, and we're going to come onto that in a minute. I've got to ask you though, because we did have a chat before. There's one other one that I really like. It's quite playful, which is the Lou Roll magazine holder. Just briefly tell us about that one. Sometimes
you have a design which is pretty simple. We wanted to come up with some functional designs, and sometimes the designs aren't that exciting, but the name is what brings it alive. So we did this magazine rack, Lou Roll holder, the idea that everyone reads in the loo, or not everyone, but you don't always admit to it, but it's just classic case, so you store magazines in the loo. And product was good, really functional. And it was walking across Blackfriars Bridge where, thinking about what could you call this product. And we always thought, well, don't call it a boring name, have a name which resonates. And Lou Reed obviously came to, and not everyone's going to be old enough to remember Lou Reed, but
I am.
Underground.
For sure.
And what was really nice was 2 years after selling it, we actually found out that his interior designer came on our stand at a trade show in New York, and she had bought one for him and given it to him as Christmas present.
I love it. Great. Well, let's come more up to the common today with Black and Bloom. Tell us a bit about Black and Bloom. What sort of area of design are you focused around?
So, well, I guess the starting point of this, is 6 years ago. So we were doing kitchenware products, still doing doorstop. We had introduced our first lunchbox 14 years previously, so in 2010, I think it was. And we really loved that area because it came out of a sustainable need, and also filter water bottles, where at the time children were taking fun lunchboxes to school, but adults were in the West were making do with boring food containers. Yet in Japan, they used bento boxes, and the lunchbox is an actual art form. And so the business was muddled. It didn't have one fixed direction. Two things happened. I had a bit of a sort of Jerry Maguire epiphany moment where designers have got a sustainable responsibility. We're bringing these products into existence, and do they really deserve to exist? And I wanted to sort of actually focus the business down in terms of only doing products that get better with age, that perform a function that you use every day, that don't, we hate the word gadget, that you get given a product, you buy a product, you think it's going to be good, but you put it in a drawer, and after a few years it ends up in landfill or is never used. The amount of resources that goes to making a product in terms of tooling, energy, time spent, money designing, creating this product, it's got to warrant coming into existence. And so doing food and drink on the go products, you're reducing single-use packaging, you're reducing food waste, They help you live a healthy, active lifestyle. They improve your quality of life. And so as a category, it wasn't being done well, and we thought we could make a difference. And these products are good, they're nice products, and certainly the ones hopefully we design. We talk a lot about design with soul. So whenever we design a product, we're trying to design a product which gets better with use. Everyone sort of has their favourite wallet or leather belt, and it becomes, you buy it new, but as you use it, it becomes yours. I had my grandfather's old silver fountain pen, and the patina had worn, and somehow every time I use it, I kind of feel like it was my handwriting somehow changes. And if you can get that passion and love for a product by using, I've got an IKEA wooden spatula that I had as a student, and it's still my fried egg go-to spatula today. And so that's what we try and get into the products. The other point was the fact that I bought an MD in 6 years ago, a great guy, and he had a lot more experience, and he was very quick to go, we need to focus. And so it was those sort of two moments of going, right, we are new to the market in this category, but we have the best product, no one's really doing it. It's an area where designers love it, where you find an area that hasn't really been tackled. And so it gives you opportunity to go, what can we do? And every time we do a product, we don't want to just do another product. It's got to be better. It's got to be unique. It's got to offer the market something new that they haven't, to say we're solving a genuine need here. And so that's how it started.
It's a really beautiful range, and actually I can just tell by looking at the website that they are the kind of objects, I'm looking at it now actually, they're the kind of objects that I would really like to hold, because I can see the way that they've been, they look quite tactile, the ridges, the curved nature of it, they look really fantastic. How would you describe, or maybe it's an inappropriate question, but the kind of aesthetic of them, or the materials that you use? Because there's a lot of wood. It's kind of looks like a kind of silver, kind of metal, or maybe aluminium. But just tell us about the aesthetic of what you design currently.
We use plastic, which isn't always a favourable material, but it is a very good material if it's used properly. We use stainless steel, we use bamboo, and we use glass. Silicon, it's not technically a plastic. We try and use materials, as I said, which can take a dent, which can take a scratch, and it doesn't. We don't use colour massively. I think colour can be subjective. It can be very fashion-led, which can come in fashion, but can also go out of fashion. We try to do timeless design. Bauhaus is kind of often referred to as a design style, but it's clean lines, clean radiuses, and the attention to detail we give each product, because we're a design-led business, we can, and we're all designing everything in-house. It means that every product will share a common radius or a link. I guess I'm bordering on OCD, or a little bit, but these are the details which tie a range together. And if you can create a brand language where people don't necessarily have to see the brand, but they recognise a product as ours, and that's a success in our eyes.
What product from the current range do you think best typifies what you do?
I've got a few here as examples. So as I said, we like to be the first to market with some products. So I've got a stainless steel lunchbox here, and it was our first full stainless steel sort of product, and the first to market where it's 100% leak proof. So there's lots of old stainless steel products on the market, but they weren't truly leak proof, and they have big bulky clips. So ours takes inspiration from Japan bentos, where you've got this sort of band going around it. If I just take this fork off, I can show you. But the key point of difference is the fact that ours has no clips, so it's vacuum sealed, so it keeps your food fresh. But this cannot open. It's a bit like they use vacuums to lift heavy sheets of glass. Vacuum's super strong. So with this, like this, it's totally leak-proof, fully sealed. You can't open it. Simply open the air valve, and that allows air in, and then you can open it up. So fully leak-proof, fully sealed, and you've got a divider so you can separate your foods.
Oh yeah.
And we now even do microwave-safe stainless steel lunchboxes as well. But that was one of the very early designs. And I've got another lunchbox here, but you can see that simple details like the radius and the sort of format of the design language, you've got to tie them together. They're this is steel, this is plastic, but we have a very tight color line. We just do accents of color, a very sort of minimal color palette, but you can hopefully gauge the link between the two.
Yeah, no, you absolutely can. You can see they're from the same family, and I noticed actually, going into work. Actually, when I returned back to the UK, I was struck by how many people were taking their lunches into work. I think partly because it's so bloody expensive buying it at Pret and places like that. So, was that a happy coincidence that you landed on kind of like a growth sort of area, or was that by design as well?
A bit of both. I think we've definitely helped influence the market. We were the first company to do a bamboo lid. You can see this lunchbox behind me. It's got a bamboo lid, and I mentioned other brands, but everyone has done it since, copied us. IKEA now does a bamboo lid lunchbox, but we were the first company in the world to do a bamboo lid on a lunchbox, and the serendipity moments of it came about. We had a Polish designer at the time. And I didn't know this about Poland, but they have, it sounds a bit like a Hobbit, they have second breakfast. At 10:30, they will have a second breakfast. So this girl is a great designer. She's like, at 10 o'clock, 10:30, she's like having a second breakfast. I'm like, what do you do? And when we got thinking about the idea that I love tomatoes in sandwiches, but I hate soggy sandwiches. So if you go to a great sandwich shop and get a freshly made sandwich, perfect with tomatoes, but your sort of petrol station tomato sandwich, not so good. And so we thought if we could put a chopping board with a lunchbox and prep as you go, then that all made sense. And I think, as you say, the cost of convenience food and the waste as well, and the food waste, it's all playing in. And a healthy living, people living on a balanced diet as well.
Yeah, awesome. Tell us let's turn to manufacture now. Where do you manufacture now? And if you attitude or experience in manufacturing perhaps in the UK, what's that been like?
Well, we started the company when we first started making our first products in 2000, and that was made in the UK. We did lighting. And at the time, the type of materials we were using, production processes, that was all fine. We were assembling them ourselves, making it in the UK. But we do a lot of vacuum products now. So I've got a travel cup here. To get this made to the right quality and at the right price where it's commercial, it is made in China. And we work with great factories there. And it's a pleasure to go to them, and you get to know the people well. The engineers are brilliant, so you put across a concept which is quite challenging, and they're wanting to solve it, and they'll have 20 people working on this product with you to get it across the line, at the right quality and the right price. So that's where we manufacture our products now in the majority of cases.
And what about distribution? You mentioned some early success with Target. Where can we buy the products, and what does that look like?
Pretty much everywhere. So in terms of nationally, we're all over the world. We have distributors in Australia, in Korea, in Canada, in lots of countries. We sell directly in the UK. We sell directly in France. Those are countries where we sell directly. But we have warehouses. Third-party warehouses in the US, in Europe, and in the UK. So, and we sell through our website, but we also sell to retailers. We do a lot of co-branding, so we don't do own label, so we won't put someone else's brand on our product without our logo, but we do a lot of co-branding with some of the best brands in the world in this category, because typically in this category of sort of water bottles, travel cups, lunch boxes, you will get good brands who used to just go to a factory in China and put their logo on a product, but that bottle could also be in a cheap supermarket for £10, but this brand is trying to pass it off as a high value item. Whereas now this sort of co-brand merchandise market, whether it's a gift or whether it's even for retail, these companies want to be associated with a quality product. So we like working with sort of good brands, and then they are happy to co-brand with us on these products.
Can you name some of those, the bigger partnerships that you have?
Prada, Purdy, Harrods. There's quite a few exciting ones coming up. Finisterre. I'm going to leave out lots of people. Arc'teryx, Raab. There's been some great ones.
Yeah, the very, very familiar names there. What about the US? Are you still able to distribute retail in the US? What does that look like?
Well, tariffs going on at the moment is interesting, but in the US we're not huge, but we have got a very good online presence. So we're working with some really nice retailers, but we're also selling directly through our website in the US.
So you've struck up some really interesting collabs and distribution partners there. Any advice for other people looking to replicate something along those lines?
Hopefully, don't do it in our area.
Yes.
I think if you've got a good product, the whole traditionally you would go to a trade show and retailers would come to your stand and place orders. Go back 8 years, that was the case. But now it's definitely not the case anymore. High street retailers obviously struggling. You've got maybe some specialist, high value retailers who are great still. But the market is condensed, and you've got the bigger retailers, and they're harder to supply because they'll have more terms and conditions and stricter standards in terms of what you have to pass and the regulations and how you supply them even. So I think the whole aspect of co-branding is being entrepreneurial. It's looking at a category which you haven't traditionally looked at. So if we approached some of these fashion brands we work with, they wouldn't normally have a water bottle or a lunchbox, but there's no reason they can't. And it's amazing how the power of a brand, you put someone else's brand on our product and it can suddenly be suitable. So we're not just about urban commuters, we're active outdoor lifestyle, rapper cycling, it's interesting, the whole merchandise co-branding area.
Great. The sort of business of design, let's continue along that theme. Are there any brands or designers that you particularly admire? This sort of goes back to perhaps your early days as well, but any designers you particularly admire, either from just a design sense or perhaps from a business perspective as well?
Yeah, lots. So starting out when we first started, Philip Stark was a very famous. He did the sort of famous Juicy Salif, the lemon squeezer, which looked like a rocket that was in the background in Ab Fab, where you're turning a product which was typically a piece of plastic with this sort of lemon on the top, and squeeze it into a piece of sculpture, and turning it into an art form where suddenly, instead of having this thing in a drawer, you'd have it on display. And you'd go in someone's house and go, oh, you're a design, you like design. And he absolutely, with Alessi, brought that whole market alive. And he's been revolutionary in so many different areas. I mean, the most famous designer is Johnny Ives. He was, I think, 4 years ahead of me at university, where I studied design, and I worked as an intern at a company that worked for Apple. But he's obviously been... I think design used to be paramount in a company. They weren't called designers, they were called artists or artisans, and then it became engineering, and somehow in the 70s we lost our way a little bit of companies realising the value of design. But Johnny Ive was instrumental in sort of bringing that alive again. I think in terms of going, if you have a good designer, this is what you can do for a brand, because it sets you apart. If you compare Apple when we were starting out compared to everything else on the market, they were just so different. There's a famous designer called Ron Arad, who's sort of furniture, fashion architecture. He's done all sorts of different designs, but he did a chair design that was famously copied by these Chinese factories. And rather than trying to pursue them, he went to visit the factory, and then he ended up, because the quality was very good, he ended up getting them doing designs specifically for that factory. And I think that's quite creative thinking in terms of how do you challenge this stuff.
What's his name? I'm not familiar with him. Ron Arad.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll look him up. Yeah, I'm sure you're right about Johnny Ive, by the way, because I think also Apple put the design front and center of a lot of their marketing. If you think about those keynote speeches that they did and the big product launches and the loving way in which the 3D models are zoomed in, the bevels and all the attention to detail and the design language. I think Apple have made a huge contribution to actually consumers becoming much more aware about the quality and importance of good design.
But I think companies, if you're selling a physical product, why not showcase the design?
Yeah.
That's the person. And it was only, as you said, Steve Jobs who brought Johnny Ive to the forefront of Apple, to celebrate this. It's a key part of, the success. It's not the only part, obviously, the logistics, the marketing, but, it's a very important part.
Tell us then about, let's switch to sort of more of the pure business side. So you've been going since '98, which is a great track record. You've been through a lot, right? If you think of all the events that have happened since '98, tell us what have been some of the key learnings in that period, either for the business or for you, or a couple of key decisions that you've really, when you look back on it, you thought, God, I really made the right decision there.
Yeah, as you said, there's been a lot learned. We've had a few what we call internally as custard pies with, COVID, Brexit, internet. And the market's very different now to what it used to be. In the old days, you could get away with a lot more. Now it's hard being a small company because you've got to be a specialist in so many different things, whether it's online sales, photography, video, social media, everything, all this sort of stuff. But key learning things, be the best at one particular thing. Mm-hmm. And so when we were starting out, our passion was design. So my business partner, who I bought out quite a few years ago, 10 years ago now, but we were both product designers, and our love was purely the design. And we would go from category to category to category. There was no focus on one area. So what tended to happen is we'd go to a trade show with a new product, and we were super excited by it, and the buyers were super excited by it, and it would sell really well. And then the following year, the buyer would come to us and go, "What's next?" And we're like, no, we don't work like that. We've got this product. Look at this product. They're like, no, we're not the buyer for that. We're the buyer for over here. Yeah. And so it became very hard to scale. So we were known, I think, well known in the design community, but not known in the market. So if you went to a John Lewis, you would find one product over here, one product over here. There would be a difference of aesthetic. It didn't always have this clean aesthetic. We've done lots of different sort of styles and feels of product, taking each product as a blank page and starting afresh. And so when you see companies, and we had lots of friends who started companies at the same time, and they have I won't name them, but they've done amazingly well. And it's an accolade to them because they worked out very quickly, if you're building a molehill, build on that same molehill and you keep building. Whereas if you're doing a scattergun approach, it's very, very hard. So, and even more so now, I feel like technology, how would you say, polarizes. You can be the cheapest or you can be the best, but don't be in the middle. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to do something, set out to do that one thing really, really well. Doesn't mean you have to be the most expensive, be the cheapest, but know exactly what you're trying to achieve. And the world is a small place now, which is the advantage of now compared to the old days in terms of spreading the word globally. It's a huge market, and if you get that one thing right, and you know exactly who that target audience is you are going after, then it's easy to scale.
Great. So be the best, focus, be clear about your target audience. You spoke a little bit about bringing an MD in a few years ago, and I talked to a lot of businesses. It's interesting because sometimes the really successful ones have at the right point in time made that decision, but sometimes there is a tendency, I think, from owner-led businesses, they find it difficult to relinquish, especially if they've built the company from scratch, they've done every job in the company. Sometimes they struggle with delegation, trust, perhaps a fear of whether that person can do it as well as they have been doing it. Tell us a little bit about the reasons why you brought in an MD and what that experience has been like for you.
When it comes to design, I am probably, I'll say this for my design colleague, our design director, who's brilliant, he's seriously good. and he's very, very patient with me because I probably am a nightmare to work with. I'm very anal, OCD on all the bits I like, and it doesn't mean he likes it. And he's very forgiving because I'm pointing out these things which are minuscule, and that's where I do have input. But I'm very good at working out what I'm not good at, and there's a lot of. I know I'm very good at very few things. I'm not well organised. I'm not disciplined. I haven't got a tidy desk. A lot of crazy people are like that. I guess I'm trying to forgive myself for these problems, but so I'm very lucky. I've had a great team around me. We've got a fantastic finance director here who's been with us for 20 years, I think it is. So and having good people. The best thing I think you can have, especially in a small company, maybe it's the same in a big company, I don't have the experience to say that, but is you want to let people be their own bosses. If they take charge of what their area is, they feel empowered and they have passion because they're doing it. If you're trying to micromanage every single aspect of what someone else does, it's not good. And everything, we have a great team here now, and they are. You want to try and get the best people doing what they enjoy in that area, and so our MD is exactly the same with that. He's got equity in the business, he's got stake, and he lives it, he breathes it. He came from a much bigger business, so he's very good on all the discipline of how we grow the business and bringing that big company procedure. But we still act like a small company. The nice thing is communication's very quick. We have a very good relationship. I hope we're good at communicating internally what the company's doing, but I think empowering people, letting people just do their job is what's important.
And talking of growth, what is your growth ambition? Where would you like the company to be in a couple of years?
I'll say I'd love it to be over 10 million. We're not, that's a lot of growth, and whether we get there or not. But we've had some very good growth last year. We're expanding. We've got some exciting prospects. I won't say what they are, but it's always lovely when you've got prospects and meetings lined up where it only takes just one of those to come off, and suddenly you're a different. And it's the good thing about being a small company. You having those little sort of wins could be a big win and make a big difference.
Yeah. Great. Are there any key challenges? I'm thinking now in terms of running a business it's still manufacturing, perhaps not, but you've still got a London base, operating out of London. A lot of business owners talk about some of the challenges of people, for example. As you look towards that ambition, are there any sort of headwinds, any challenges or key challenges that you can foresee?
Being a small company, it makes it very hard to react to when you're spread. So we're a small company who sell everywhere, and you're having to, you would think under the EU that there's commonality in terms of packaging laws, but they're not. Italy and France will have different packaging regulations to other countries in the EU. And so doing everything from food safety testing, complying with packaging laws, being registered, selling internationally, multi-currency, being, we've got a European registered company so that we can import into Europe and sell as a European company. Loads and loads of aspects, and as I said, becoming an expert in terms of social media, investing in that properly, doing it as well as we can. I think we punch well above our weight in terms of how we do things. And I think that comes from having people who are empowered and passionate about what they're doing and letting them get on with it. But I think we're in a difficult time because we're not quite big enough to have as many people as we'd like doing these things, or invest in, give them the budgets to do what they would like to do. But we're just at that point where maybe we're just about to get there. Yeah,
great. Well, just to wrap up, Dan, tell us a little bit. I ask this question of everybody. Tell us about a leader, could be a designer, could be somebody you've already mentioned, but somebody that's had a really positive impact on your professional career or your business life.
Do I have to name one person?
No, some people quite often say, there's a few people, I've taken bits from different people. I've
got a father and three brothers who are permanent non-execs. And because I'm the youngest as well, it's a nightmare. I'm not very good at they don't think I'm very good at taking advice, which I'm not sure it's true, but I don't enjoy it. But I get a lot of it. But at the same time, they're all very, very good, and they all feed in constantly. Have you know, in terms of networking as well, it's like having a sort of family LinkedIn where do you know anyone who's good at this? Yes, I can introduce you. Or I don't know, but I know someone who will, and that makes a massive difference.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you basically had your dad sounds like a great guy, and he all three brothers. Was four of you?
Can I do a plug for them? Yeah, my eldest brother's got used to have with a business partner Feather and Black, and now has a good business called Button and Sprung, and they do bed mattresses and beds just in a better way, and they're based in London but sell all over the UK. My other two brothers built up the UK's largest childcare business and sold it, and one of them's busy doing lots of different ventures, and the other one has just started a girls' cricket clothing company called Maiden, specifically for girls' cricket, which no one has done before. So
fantastic. Well, what an entrepreneurial family. That's great, and you all sound very successful as well. Fantastic. Well, Dan, I wish you every luck. Luck is the wrong word. Every success for the next couple of years as you head towards that goal that you spoke about. We will put a link to the site in the various socials that this will go out on. I've got my eye on one or two things on the website, so I will. And thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much indeed. That's great.
Thanks. Thank you.